everyone. Welcome to Black Mental Health Matters, where we discuss mental health issues affecting the Black community. We invite a range of professionals from across the world to discuss stigma and share resources on increasing access for mental health resources. Today, we've got a very special guest, Tamil, who is a CEO for her own organization called Black Voices United. Could you please introduce yourself, Tamil, and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello. So it's a pleasure to be here today, Yolanda. My name is Tamil Makibe. I am the creative director and also one of the founders of Black Voices United Artist Collective. Black Voices United is an artist collective based out of California. It started as a moment in history on a college campus, a Black Lives Matter demonstration, and it expanded into an amazing movement for creatives to be able to have a platform, but also the resources and the community to be able to develop themselves and their art and provide their work as a service to the community that we all come from, so that we all can work towards our collective liberation. So we do a lot of different things, but it's all directed to making sure that we have what we need as artists to make the best of our impact.
No, thank you. That sounds like you're doing some really amazing work and providing such a nurturing space for creatives. I think from what I know about your work, you're really big on kind of imposing, or rather viewing things from an Afrocentric perspective in the creation of art. Do you just mind sharing a bit more about this process?
Yeah, so the Afrocentric perspective really helps us understand everything that we're going through, everything that's happening in our lives through a lens that is centering our needs, our values, our culture, the people we come from, our history. And when we're looking at our lives as African people through any other lens than our own, it's very limited because it doesn't allow us to take into account the different things that make up who we are, but also the factors that influence our experience. So as many people may call our generational history here in the States, I'm in America, but also like collectively, we have a diasporic history of excellence, but also of trauma. So an Afrocentric perspective allows us to be able to look at all of that information directly through our own experience. So through our language, through our culture, our spirituality, our values, and everything else that stems from who we are as African people.
Wow, that sounds really cool. On a practical sense, how does this look like sort of on an everyday scale in your organization? Do you have to get like lots of educators, who are using this perspective, or is it just something that's internal of, African people and people of African descent?
Oh, that's a really good question. So honestly, it depends on the person. It depends on the position from which they're coming from in their Blackness or in their identity with being an African person. We all have experienced a certain type of conditioning that has just limited the ways that we see ourselves, the ways that we relate to ourselves as African people. I know for a long time, even connecting with the continent of Africa was something that came with a lot of pushback and a lot of shame and a lot of guilt for a lot of people. So being able to embrace what we call a decolonization process allows us to be able to look at ourselves with gentleness and say, okay, this may have been something that was given to me or told me was the right way that I needed to do things or see myself or communicate. But what is more in alignment with who I am as a person? What is more in alignment with who I am at the core? What makes me feel authentic to the way that I'm expressing myself? And for some people, we talk about code switching. For others, we talk about the ways that we express ourselves. For Black women, that's something that we talk a lot about because of the way that we express ourselves is capitalized on and taken advantage of, and what we call cultural appropriation for some communities. So we have to think about the ways that all of these different elements play into how we see ourselves and how we feel confident in being authentic in what our story is and what our experience is in the African experience, because it's not a monolith. It's different for every single African person. But if we can all recognize that we're moving from a core place that makes us all kind of relate and be in alignment with the truth that we're telling and the story that we're telling, because we all have a collective story. But as African people, it's important that we start to center that story more on what our story is as opposed to what we've been told our story is.
I couldn't agree more, honestly. And I feel like you said about cultural appropriation, on some level, Black people have always been like the pioneers, I think, of culture and the arts. But at the same time, kind of taking up this space where it's not necessarily for us or from within us, it's a sort of maybe performative. But I've realized that at least in the last 2 years in music and fashion and art, there's just been an explosion of respect and exposure for African creators. And I think that's just so exciting. And clearly it's people like you as well influencing this shift, I think, in authentic production of art. So thank you so much. It's really inspiring, honestly. So you've already said that, this kind of Afrocentric perspective, it allows people to kind of come away from this shell or these boxes that have been, made for them. In the Black community, when you're sort of supporting these people and helping them monetize on their art, do you feel like this perspective has allowed for art to be produced that's, I think, different to what people are expecting or anything like that?
In a lot of different ways, yes. When it comes to reckoning with the reality of being an artist in the Black community, it's not something that our parents or our community members are going to tell us, oh, yeah, you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to be so famous and you're going to be so rich. Like, that's not the reality from the position of which, people pour into our dreams and our visions as creatives. And so a lot of people, when it comes to monetizing their art, they feel this like overwhelming sense of judgment because it's like, is my community going to support me? Am I going to have to rely on people outside of my community to support me and relate to my art? Do I create for myself? Do I create for my people? Do I create for a larger, more global audience? And so when we think about the dollar sign that is placed on African American art and on African art in general, especially globally, it's capitalizing on the pain and the traumatic experiences of Black artists. So if you're not portraying, a police officer gunning down a Black man or, somebody, by all means, trigger warning, but by all means, somebody hanging from a tree, or like, if we're not expressing these very bold and sensitive images of our pain, what we go through and what we experience, that is where the money lies for a lot of buyers. And it's sad that Black pain has been capitalized on to the point where now we have movies and TV shows and all of these different forms of visual media that don't really create space for other parts of our experience. Like, we know as people in the African community that pain is not the only thing that we're going through. That's a very limited way to look at the ways that we experience our lives and ourselves and each other. But it still keeps our artists in this space where they feel like they'll never be able to make it or make a name for themselves or really, expand their platform if they're not creating within this very narrow framework of who they are and how they should want to express their truths. And what I appreciate more recently is a lot of the art that I'm seeing coming out of the creative community is focusing on Black joy, is focusing on, our expansiveness as a people, but also the ways that we want to restore our connections to each other, not only between Black men and Black women, but, Black men and Black trans women, Black trans folks in general in regards to the rest of the Black community, Black people who have disabilities, and the ways that we're centering more of these different truths into the work that we are exposing ourselves to, but also putting out here so that it's not just about our pain, so that we're not constantly traumatized by the reinforcement of these stories that don't allow us to live more fully in our truths.
No, I think that's so wonderful that you're creating this space where people, like you said, there is money in sharing the trauma and the pain, and the media is, I think overly saturated with stories of, gangsters or, slavery or things like that are just kind of, I think, a bit people can kind of reach for those stories first before looking at the romance and, you know, the parent relationship and the joy, I think, in life. But the theme of this podcast is healing through art. So there is obviously that component that when people are creating art and you're providing a sensitive and an open environment, it can happen that, you know, lots of trauma comes out or lots of pain comes out. I think that's one of your focuses as well in your organization. Do you mind just sharing a bit more about this process with us?
Yeah, so something that we really like to focus on in Black Voices United is 3 different principles: healing, learning, and growing. And the reason that we've constructed this framework is because we recognize that, you know, not only are we serving a specific audience within the Black community, we've expanded our work to be inclusive of so many different communities in our community. So that includes elderly folks, that includes the youngest of our generations, like babies who are barely coming into understanding the world and who they are, but still need that immersion, still need that development and that pouring into. Young adults who have been to prison, young adults who have been in mental institutions, folks who have been homeless. Like, we have had to expand our services in so many different ways. So that comes with a certain gentleness, that comes with a certain vulnerability, empathy, being able to look at these people and their experiences and say, you're still human. You're still a person. Your truth and your voice still matter. And we want to hear your story. We want others to hear your story. And we also want you to be able to pick yourself up and move beyond just this position of, you know, the things that you've experienced. Like, we want you to be the person that you want to be in the world and create that legacy and that impact that you want to create. So we offer mentorship programs, particularly for those who are interested in tapping into other people's experiences, because mentorship isn't for everybody. Some people prefer community spaces or healing circles where we just come together and combine all our different ideas and bounce off of each other. Some people really just prefer those one-on-one opportunities to have people pour into them, though. And that's why the mentorship program is just such a powerful space for us to be able to connect and collaborate and really restore our relationships with each other, so that it's not like, you know, us feeling like we have to compete for the same dollar, but affirming the experience of there being enough for all of us, affirming that abundance that we all have, and also that uniqueness that we want to make sure that we're bringing out. Even though we're a community, we want to remind each other, you have something unique to bring to the table, and that matters, and we want to hear that story, and we want to be involved in that development. Another thing that we've recently incorporated is fellowships, where we bring so many different members from our community together and create these amazing programs. And we take our fellows through at least 3 weeks of just very intensive self-development, creative development, healing, but also, you know, that's a part of the learning and the growth aspect of our foundation. Like, where are you now and where are you trying to go? And how can we pour into you in ways that is in alignment with where you are going, so that at the end of this program, you're feeling a lot more clear and concise in regards to what your next steps will be and how you can pour that information or go and teach the next person and prepare them for the rest of their journey. We also have just different creative workshops. We also provide a few years ago, we had a development or an extension of our programs, which was Vegans Black Again, which provided members of our community an opportunity to tap into a plant-based structure for reorganizing their diet and their health and their relationship to their wellness, so that there was more affirmation and empowerment and embracing that growth than just shame. You know, oh, you're doing everything wrong. No, this is what you're doing right, and this is where you can still grow, and this is where you can receive the support from your community to be able to grow in ways that you may want to. And then going back into the contracting, like we always want to make sure that we're connecting our artists to opportunities for them to apply these skills and provide their services to different communities. So it's not just about what they're creating and who they're creating it for, but that they're actually expanding that into the people that we serve and getting their name out there, getting their services used and their resources used by people who actually need these things. And so we've expanded into so many different avenues. We look forward to getting a physical space soon, so that we can really be able to connect with people on a first, like, face-by-face basis, provide those resources at a face-by-face basis, and really make sure that we have the tangible community that we need instead of just relying on the virtual platforms to connect with our communities.
It sounds like such a wide spectrum you guys cover, and the lots of different sort of services you provide for these creators. It just sounds phenomenal. I'm just thinking like more in the context of mental health, because what you said is it's really hard, I think, to identify what somebody needs or what they want to gain from that experience in the program. Can you just like share with us a bit what that process may look like if there is a mental health component? How might somebody's journey look like if they're accessing one of your workshops or your programs, and how that negotiation kind of happens?
Yeah, so some of the programs that we offer, specifically discussing our wellness and our mindfulness workshops, or even our mentorship programs, we always want to make sure to recognize where people are at in their journey and what we can give them so that they can, one, take pride in the ways that they're coping with mental health issues. So specifically in alignment with, I would say, the healing aspect of the work that we do is recognizing that everybody's coming from a different place in their experience. And with that, we have to honor the different needs that we all have, especially when it comes to mental health and especially when it comes to mental health illnesses, because with that experience, there comes a lot of isolation and loneliness, but also just abuse, sometimes self-harm, drug abuse, alcoholism, the ways that we harm ourselves and that we harm other people. And so when people are coming into our programs, 9 times out of 10, they're choosing to do the work, but they also don't know exactly how to do the work. They don't know exactly how to come back into a healthy space in themselves to where they may even be confident that they can be there for themselves. So a lot of the initial process is encouraging them to take pride in just the basic tangibles of what they can do for themselves, whether that be coming to group and discussing their experiences with other people or just listening. We always, we have one of our rules where it's like, if you came here to just listen, that's just as valid as if you came to share something really powerful and impactful. Because whatever you're walking away with, that's going to be the next thing that encourages you to push forward and to maybe being able to share your truth the next time, or inspire somebody outside of group and outside of our healing spaces to share their truth and express what they need in alignment with you being able to take that information in and pass it on to someone else. We also want to make sure that we're encouraging our creatives, in our workshops, but also in our mentorships, to take pride in the work that they're doing, but also understand that their self-esteem and their confidence does not have to be so intimately connected with the things that they're going through. Because, a lot of the times when you're dealing with mental health illness, it's easy for you to say, because I'm going through this makes me someone that other people don't want to be around, or this makes me a bad person, or this makes me an unlovable person or an undeserving person. And so we constantly have to be in this space of making sure that our creatives are in alignment with the value of who they are, and not just what they produce as artists, but who they are, the core essential essence of what they bring to the table when they walk in a room, what we call an aura or an energy, making sure that their energy is where they need it to be, making sure that their cup is full so that they understand that what they have to bring to the table is enough. Whether they've produced something in months, whether they have, a creative inspiration, or whether they're just navigating through the darkness and coming back into the light, reminding them that they are of value as they are wherever they are in their process. And that's where a lot of our mentorship programs really take they take off in terms of outcomes, because once people see that they're seen in their experiences, once they can feel that there's somebody who can connect with them where they're at, they feel like they can do things. They feel that inspiration and that motivation to go after what they want. But before we can even push them to just come in and tell us what their visions and their dreams are, we have to remind them that, it's okay for you to be where you are, where you may not know what anything is right now. You may not even know yourself anymore, and that's okay. We're here to remind you that you are somebody and that you do have a legacy, and that your dreams and your visions, they will come to you in a time where it's time for you to pour into them. Right now, it's time for you to pour into you, and we're here to help you do that. Other things that we want to help our creatives do, especially in relationship to mental health, and being able to pour into themselves, is encouraging them to understand that transparency is is everything. That vulnerability, you being able to trust in other people with your experience, trust in yourself to be able to communicate what you need, that is everything. That's how you really get the support that you need from your community, from a physical therapist, or a program that may pour into you and help you feel more in alignment with your healing. You have to put yourself in a place to be able to communicate, this is what I'm going through and this is what I need. And so a lot of our workshops really provide our creatives the tools and the resources to be able to say, okay, this is what I have and this is what I still need to work on, so that I can be more clear and concise with asking for what I need, but also assuring that I'm allowing people to pour into me, assuring that I'm not just someone who wants to go out and solve all these social problems, but not be in a position to let anybody assist me with being a better me. And I think we also have to help them consider, which is what some of our visionary programs do, is help our creatives consider that who you are today is not all that you're ever going to be. And it's really hard to tell somebody that when they're in a really low place, when they're struggling with their mental health. It's really hard for them to understand, like, okay, I'm going through this today, but when I wake up tomorrow, I still have the opportunity to feel and be something different. It's hard to reckon with that reality. But when you have people who are constantly affirming you and the tools that you do have to be able to do that work, it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to change your mindset and to really take an initiative and take an action towards the things that you want, and then towards feeling the things that you want to feel. But it all starts with the resources and having the tools and believing that you have the tools to be able to help yourself and be able to help somebody else after you if that's necessary. So those are just some of the small ways that our programs have really assisted people in finding out, where am I? Where do I still need to go? And what do I have to help me get there?
It sounds like somebody needs to probably maybe be able to allow themselves to be vulnerable in this process. And I can imagine, a lot of things may come out like trauma or stress.
Yes.
What do you have in place, to kind of manage these, like maybe emotive, situations when they occur? Because I think from my learning, especially if there's like a mental illness component, it can be really, I think, not dangerous, but it can be kind of like, I think, difficult, like you've said, to support somebody who's going through these things. And I wondered what you have in place to kind of like make it a little bit easier, or to make the process just a little bit more, I think, productive as well, to treatment as well.
Yeah. So in some of our workshops, what we have to do is actually bring in mental health professionals. And that's where we have like healing circles. So we might have a program where we have a healing circle first, where we allow the professionals to come in and just really provide people some tangible, not solutions, but support, and being able to understand what they're going through, some affirmation in their experiences so that they don't feel like they're alone. And hearing that from a medical professional sometimes is a lot more comforting for people than just hearing that from a friend or a fellow community member, because it's like, okay, you're telling me that, but am I really going to be okay? So when we bring those medical professionals in, they really can affirm people in the normalness of their experience, the humanness of their experience. Like it's normal that you're in a position where you may feel this heavy depression or anxiety, or for those who experience, PTSD or bipolar disorder. When we can first normalize those experiences from people who have done the research, who have been in the field, who have worked very directly with people who have these conditions, it allows people to feel in themselves like, okay, it's not just me. Like, okay, there are people who can help me, but also I'm able to help myself, and I'm not just lost. I'm not just hopeless. I can return to my wholeness, and I can have the life that I want to have, as long as there is some normalness to what I'm going through. And for a lot of people, just the healing circle aspect of our programs really does provide them a different perspective on where they are and what they're going through, but also what they're battling. Because mental health is something that in the Black community, we just don't talk about enough. And the more recent conversations have really allowed us to be able to speak up about the fact that these are things that we're going through. But I personally feel like we're still in the process of navigating what that looks like for people in our families who really need help, and what that looks like for those of us that really may need that help, but not know how to seek that help. And so when we can first understand that this is a part of our experience. And if it's a part of our experience, then it's a part of our journey towards where we're going. Then we can get into the aspect of, okay, where am I going and what am I doing and how can I transcend beyond this pain and become more than just a product of my pain and my trauma, and more in alignment with my wholeness as a person, what I actually have to offer the world. And so those healing circles really provide people that space to feel, as I mentioned, human in their experience, but also feeling that support from those around them who have done the work and who know what needs to get done for them to be as healthy as they may want to be, or as they are still striving to be. Because not everybody, especially when it comes to clinical conditions, not everybody is that clear on what that healing version of them or that healed version of them is going to look like. There's constantly stuff to heal from, especially when we're constantly exposed to the things that have made us feel so ill and out of place in ourselves. So when we're in a space where we can, at least remove ourselves for a little while, be able to step into community, step into spaces where people know what they're talking about and know what they're doing, it allows us to feel like we're more equipped to show up in a different light in regards to where we're trying to go in our healing, especially when it comes to mental health. And it's not a linear process at all. It's an everyday constant journey. But when you have the tools that you need and you also have the space to feel like what you're going through is normal and is reachable, then you start to feel more hope in what your journey forward looks like.
No, I think what you're doing is very, very necessary, because just last week we were talking about our stigma in the Black community for mental health, and the fact that, within your space and your organization, you're actually inviting these mental health professionals to talk about a lot of these issues, offer support and treatment where necessary. I think it's so important because you're breaking that barrier. I think you're bringing them into your space so people have access to that support. And I really like what you said about the healing circles, the fact that you're having these people in a community who've been through that experience maybe, or are a little bit more aware of the process, and when you're coming to them with your experiences, or maybe you're a little bit more inexperienced, they can kind of in a way maybe validate your journey and make you feel not so alone. So I think that's very exciting what you're doing. This sort of aspect of art therapy, do you think it can work for other mental health issues that are a little bit more extreme than depression or anxiety?
Yeah, I think when it comes to more clinical conditions, like I've done just very accessible research in terms of me being a college student. I was able to engage in a lot of different studies that did allow me to understand how arts and medicine is something that has transformed the medical industry in terms of being able to help people in ways that don't just make them feel so robotic in their journey towards healing and becoming better and becoming healthier. Art has allowed people to, in most cases, just develop a certain type of inner well-being and flow state that allows them to feel like they are more than just their illness. I know for people who have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or even multiple personality disorders, sometimes something as simple as them sitting down and working on a collage, or being in a meditative state and working on a choreographed dance or a song, or being able to take the different narratives that they have inside of themselves and incorporate that into a film or a role-playing activity. Like, these type of experiences really help people understand more what they're going through, and aside from just a medical perspective, because a doctor can come and give you a diagnosis and tell you that this is what you have and these are the medicines that you need to take. But as people, how do we learn to really process our trauma and the traumatic experiences that come with being diagnosed with the mental health illness, that it's not just straightforward, that, does not come in cycles, that you have to deal with and live with every day? Putting ourselves in a position where we can understand that art helps a lot and gives us the language. It helps us return to the power in ourselves to be able to develop a voice, to express ourselves, to live in that truth and say, yeah, I'm battling with this, but it's not defeating me. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And as I'm coming out on the other side, I'm understanding how important it is for me to understand what I'm going through so that I can help someone else, or so that I can elevate my own journey forward and really be able to be an advocate for what I'm going through for other people who are going through what I'm going through. So I think when it comes to, more clinical conditions, medicine is one thing, but when we combine art and medicine together, it allows people to feel like they have a choice and some type of control over their lives, some responsibility in their lives again, to where they feel like I'm not just going through this, I'm working through this, and I'm a survivor, and I'm overcoming this, and I have the support that I need to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think in the case maybe of things like trauma, research has shown that it can be really helpful for people to kind of separate themselves from whatever it is that is going on internally, because I think a lot of the time with trauma there's this sort of dissociation that occurs, and having that separate medium like art or drawing or something to separate yourself from that event or that loss of control can be really therapeutic. But I love what you said, that acknowledgement that you do need those mental health professionals to kind of like sometimes walk you through that process, because like we already said earlier, it can be really sensitive and highly emotive environment. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're receiving the proper support, because hand in hand, the therapy and the science can work really well together. So yeah, I think that's really cool. For people like myself who are not very artistic, do you think there's much space for us and your organization and what you have to offer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We believe that there's a creative spirit and a creative essence in every person that approaches this work, or that's still looking from the outside in, like, is this right for me? Considering options of what could be right for them. Creativity is something that just allows us to be able to use our voice to tell the stories that we want to tell. And when we have a collective story to tell, it allows you to look at yourself individually and say, well, where is the value in my experience and my unique story and journey? Where can I contribute something to the collective story that we're telling here, and be able to help push the narrative forward of, what we are really here for and what I'm really here for. And sometimes when it comes to mental health in particular, honestly, there are so many people who just don't know. They're not around all of these, really academic or socially conscious spaces or people who can help them understand what they're going through. Some people are just going through it. And so when you're just going through it and you're also, looking at the different options of what can assist you or what can help you in this journey, tapping into your creativity allows you to feel like there is something that you have and can do that is innate in yourself, that you already have everything you need to do. Whether that be just taking a piece of paper and drawing a circle and drawing your face inside and coloring around it and making that a mantra that you look at every day in terms of how you want to wake up and feel. Creativity can be as simple as you writing a 3-word song or poem that you recite to yourself every day that reminds you of where you're at and where you want to go. Like literally taking your goals and turning them into like this really catchy tune to make you feel like you're in the space of becoming who you want to become and embracing what you want to embrace in your experience, especially in alignment to, being in those really hard times where mental health can, and this is just being very transparent, sometimes mental health can really stunt your creativity. And so if it's as simple as you just taking the baby steps to really tap back into your imagination, to tap back into a routine of creating for your own personal pleasure, like that's what we've really come into a lot during the pandemic with Black Voices United, is reminding creatives that it's okay if you don't want to create for anything outside of yourself. It's okay if you don't want to create at all. But from that position of lacking that inspiration or lacking that courage or that motivation to get something on the page, what is the story that still needs to be told inside of you? How are you really? And how can you take that small question and turn that into something that makes you feel like what you're going through or what you're feeling is validated in your own experience, so that you don't need to continuously look outside of you and say, hey, do you hear this? Are you okay with this? And is it okay for me to feel this? You can take what you have available to you very immediately and say, this is what I'm feeling and this is what it looks like for me. This is what it sounds like for me. This is what it feels like in the way that you move your body. Very as simple as that.
No, that's so cool. And it's interesting what you said about the pandemic. And I wondered, over the last, it's 2 years now, have you, because I think you could go either way, like massive sort of engagement or poor engagement, because I feel like lots of people have obviously been isolated and staying more at home. In my line of work, I've noticed that for a lot of people, this means that, there's more lack of motivation and less desire to kind of do a lot of the things that used to bring people joy. But then, there's the opposite effect of people having more time on their hands and wanting to kind of engage with their creative sides a bit more. What have you noticed in your organization?
I've noticed, honestly, a lot of pressure. As creatives, social media has put a lot of pressure on us to keep our platforms going, to keep our audiences, to keep people buying our work or engaging with our work. But as creatives, a lot of our creatives are tired. They're tired of feeling like they're in this performative space of just doing it because it's being demanded and not because they want to, not because they feel like spirit has come into them and told them, this is something I need you to tell the world now. Like, that's not what people are really feeling right now. And so a lot of our creatives, as I mentioned, are tapping into what it looks like to create for pleasure, for your own self-satisfaction, whether that be waking up in the morning and just doing a quick watercolor painting, or, just drawing a simple sketch, or listening to some affirmations. Like, creativity has started to, I would say, transform into so many different avenues of expressing the self for so many different artists, because they don't have that inspiration to just get at the canvas or get in the studio or, get in front of a crowd and tell this amazing story or show this amazing piece. That's not where we're at right now. People need healing. They need restoring. They need something in life to happen for them to feel like what I have to say matters. And right now, with everything going in the world, that's just not what our creatives are feeling, even though they know and can affirm themselves that what they have to say matters and the art that they're creating makes an impact. We have to be very realistic and what we're dealing with and what we're all facing, and what our experiences are every day as we're waking up to a changing world. We're also changing inside of ourselves, and we have to create space for that humanity in our artists, because as much as the world may look at them as these amazing spectacles with magical powers who can create beautiful things, they're still people, and they still have mental health illness and, physical illness and ailments and just emotional blockages that prevent them from really wanting to be in that space as much as they know that it's something that the world is expecting of them. But I think a lot of our creatives are also reckoning with the fact that rest is a priority. Making sure that our basic needs are taken care of is a priority, like eating and drinking water and taking some time to ourselves to do nothing. Like, I think when we start to reckon with the ways that we've all been put into this cycle of productivity and production and going, getting it done, I think we're finally at a space where we can stop and just say, okay, yes, I can do all of these amazing things. Yes, I've achieved all of these amazing things, but how can I direct that energy back into myself so that when it is time for me to create something, I'm not just doing it because they want me to. I'm doing it because it's something that I want to tell, something that I want to bring to the forefront, something that's in alignment with all of this stuff that I've been through up until this point, and being able to transform that into something beautiful that I want to share with the world now, and not feeling like it all has to be so forced.
I guess, that's why it's probably never been more important than for like organizations like yours to exist, because you're providing that space during this pandemic where people can actually go for that community feeling rather than just to produce. And I've noticed, like in my work, like I'm constantly trying to find, organizations like yours or services like yours locally that people can engage with. Because like I've said, people are just at home, depressed, a bit anxious because, they don't know what to expect. Things are changing every month. So to have that kind of like, I think, supportive environment is just really important. And I just wondered, especially like with people in the Black community where we're more likely to maybe have like socioeconomic, issues like, not having enough money to access a lot of this support and, like art therapy, to work through your mental health issues. And I wondered, how can people engage with your service and, what the process is like, with that?
Yeah, so everything that we do at Black Voices United is free. All of our programs are funded by our leadership, are funded by grants, are funded by community fundraising. And it's like that a lot now for a lot of different programs, especially with us transitioning through the pandemic. A lot of communities and organizations have been realizing like the people that we serve, they're not going to work, and some of them have dropped out of school to where they no longer have financial aid or even housing. And so how can we make our resources more accessible to the people that we serve very directly, instead of this idealistic person or a group of people that we may want to, just have it all together and be able to provide all of this support and finances in terms of investing in themselves. Like, people are just not realistically in that space right now. So how do we start to invest in them, and what does that look like? And a lot of organizations are moving into that nonprofit direction so that they can start pulling from some of these larger investors who, have the resources, who are getting richer, who are just expanding in so many different ways because of their own investments, but taking that money and investing it into the people who, need that help right now, who are looking for that help. And also something that I highly recommend that never fails, is coming together with a group of people right where you're at and being very clear in what your intention is, being very clear in what the objective is, being very clear in what you want to create within this space, so that everybody is clear of what they're bringing to the table and also what they want to walk away with. We should have that expectation on our community at this point for it to be a strong support system, for us to be able to grow in ourselves, but also for us to be okay. And something that I really appreciate about the Black community is that we have this very hospitable spirit about us, where when we can all come together and bounce off of each other and share our ideas and share our dreams, it can be a very powerful energy in the space, and it can be a very inspiring energy in the space that can help people, come out of the funk in themselves and say, I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to do something. I'm ready to push this project forward or push this business plan forward. Like, I'm ready to get it done. But sometimes, just to be very honest, you don't always have that energy. And even if you are the only person in your community who can say it's time for a change, it's okay. It's okay that you have to lead solely for a little bit of time until you find the people who are really invested in that work with you. But it's never okay to just be the only one that's investing all of that into a group of people and none of that being poured back into you. That just creates a cycle of more just bad stuff that isn't going to support you and where you're trying to go, or also the people that you are trying to support. So we want to make sure that it's a reciprocal process with the people that we're coming together with, but that also we're opening ourselves to opportunities that are out here for us. Like, there's financial scholarships and grants that are constantly being posted on social media and different Facebook groups for us to be able to, go outside of ourselves and say, okay, let me apply, or let me develop my resume. There's little steps that we can take personally to be able to prepare ourselves to receive what we want to receive, but we also have to be open and aware that these things are available to us. Residencies, different mentorship and fellowship programs. It's all based off of clarifying what you want and what you're looking for, and actually being in a position to where you're ready to receive that help. There's therapists who offer their service at a sliding scale. There's therapists who offer their service for free. Like, one day I woke up and I was just like, I need a new therapist. And I Googled black therapists, and there's a whole website like blacktherapist.com or something like that. And it's really just that simple. Like, once you decide in yourself, this is what I want and this is what I'm looking for, seek it. Put yourself in a position to receive it, but also put yourself in a position to do the work to be able to, like, make sure that it's helping and contributing to what it needs to contribute to.
I think you're so right. A lot of the time, though, there is just like a lack of knowledge on where you can find these resources. And I think that stops a lot of people because already they think these spaces are not created for them. So I think it can be very difficult to kind of make that initial step to be like, I wouldn't even think, like, I guess if I'm living in America, because it's different here. Like, we have access to a lot of, free healthcare and such. So like, that is accessible to us. But I think a lot of the time we don't understand exactly how much is available to us, and you don't know the first place to look. So those are just really helpful tips. Just pick up the phone, just literally type into Google exactly what you want. Something is bound to show up, I think. But people don't know.
And sometimes we have to create these spaces for ourselves. Like sometimes we're in a community where this is something that no one has ever done. And if you gotten the inspiration to say, well, this is what I need, and I can't see a space for me to satisfy this need, create that space. Be that leader, take that initiative, take that action. And once you start to bring people together, you start to attract other people who are doing the exact same work, because that's how it works. When you get to a certain vibrational frequency in terms of something that you're trying to achieve in yourself or something that you're trying to provide to other people, you start to attract those very exact experiences in alignment with where you are and where you're trying to go. So once you open yourself and really create that space and be that leader that you know you are and that you know that you can be, even if you have to pull together 2 other friends and say, y'all just going to do this with me because I need this to get done and we need to get this done and our community needs this, get it done. I think that we can do so many amazing things when it comes to, fulfilling other people's dreams and making sure that what other people need and want is pushed forward. But what about the things that we need? And what about taking that same energy and initiative and directing it back into ourselves and to the people that are right next to us?
I couldn't agree more, honestly. As a young CEO, I wonder about the process, finding all these donors that are in line with your values. But was it difficult process?
No, it's not an easy process at all. Honestly, I'm a part of so many different fellowship groups and so many different communities where we have made it an active initiative to share any little plug or article or grant or scholarship that we find. We plug it into these groups with other people that we're in community with, and we make sure that we're all benefiting from the same experience. Because even if you get the grant, at least I was able to share that opportunity with you so that you can be able to get what you need and elevate on your platform. And I'm sure it's reciprocal. Like you're probably going to share a grant or an opportunity that I'm going to be able to take in and share with my community members or my collective members. And it's a cyclical pattern of investing in ourselves and investing in each other. But it's not easy. Investors don't just come and look for us. We have to look for them. We have to seek out these programs. And then also sometimes we have to create our own little trust within the community where we invest money into a bank account or a Cash App account where we're donating to a cause to be able to provide the opportunity for others in our community to take out loans or to take out just some funds to take care of themselves, or to donate it to this cause or donate it to this cause. Sometimes it has to be an in-house thing until we can really find the support that we need externally to support where we're trying to go. So there's so many different systems for so many different communities. For Black Voices United, we've had to try everything across the board.
And that's how you find what, the thing that works eventually by, trial and error. So, I don't know much about business, but I can imagine that it was very, very difficult. So I think it's very impressive that you've managed to build such an organization. And I love the fact that you're inviting these professionals, you're actually supporting people to make money from their art. At a time like this as well, I just think it's phenomenal. So thank you so much, Tabil, for sharing this space and just, telling us about your organization. Is there anything that, you would like to add that you feel like we've overlooked or anything like that?
I think that we've had a very expansive conversation on something that we don't often get to talk about with so much humanity and so much transparency and what things really are in regards to where we're at right now. I think that there's a lot of scientific ways to approach healing and overcoming mental illness, but it's something that is a constant journey. And if we're not given tools that, are at access to us, not everybody has access to a therapist, not everybody has access to even just mental health programs to be able to get themselves in a space to get the help that they need. So I think us being able to have this conversation really inspires people to understand art is something that's right here. Even if it's something I don't have all figured out, I don't have to go out and learn how to be an artist. I can tap into the artist that's inside of myself and navigate that journey in my healing. And I think that that's very personable. That's very personal. And that's where we want to start approaching the way that we're showing up for ourselves and each other is, not taking things personal, but making it more of a personal investment into yourself and into who you want to be. So I think this conversation is just a great resource in terms of so many other resources that are out here. Our website, that's 4Ws, www.blckvcesunitedorg is a platform with just so many amazing possibilities. It tells the story of the organization, but it also shows the services that we offer, some projects that we've done in the past. And it's a space for us to be able to communicate with community members who want to get our creatives involved in different projects. So there's so much that we can do, and we're always open to collaborations and just inspirations and possibilities in terms of more ways that we can be of service. So just connect with us, reach out to us in terms of anything that you may want to do wherever you're at. We're always open.
And also, your organization is a global movement, isn't it? Anybody and anyone can engage with the service. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
I think that's amazing. I'm going to be tapping in as well. So look out for me.
Oh, we have family across the globe, because you just never know what people may need the work or the services that we offer, or even the opportunity to elevate their voice and their platform. So we pride ourselves on making sure that we create that space.
Yeah, but like you said, it was going to be exciting for you guys when you can do more of that, face-to-face and one-to-one support that you were doing before. So I hope things get better for all of us, so that, we can start doing these things that are, we were planning for, or I'm sure you have massive plans to also expand your organization even further. So we will be watching. Yes. Thank you so much, Tamil. I think you've got a little clip that you wanted to show us. We're just going to play it now.
Healing Black Lives short film created by one of our creatives in the collective. And this is just a powerful resource to tap into the takeaways from this conversation. Where are you right now in your healing? Where are you right now in your mental health journey? Whether it be something that you talk about or something that you're still navigating, where are you trying to go? Where can you envision yourself being at the end of this journey? And how can you assist somebody else and getting onto their journey and pushing forward? So I definitely want to share this in the space.
Thank you.
For me, part of the struggle of Blackness or any marginalized identity is this idea of constantly being in reactivity, which means that we're constantly in a state of reactivity and we don't necessarily get a chance to heal from the effect of the stimuli. And so healing Black lives for me is a space to intentionally remove ourselves from stimuli and reactivity, to really have time to move into our cognitive brains and think about, if I'm not just in this impulsive place of constantly reacting, who am I?
Thank you for sharing that. That was quite powerful, Tamil.
Thank you for this space. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to share resources like that video, because I know that it's going to help. I know that it's going to help us elevate this movement and this platform that is available for us to have these conversations. So just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And please, guys, catch us again next week, Saturday, around the same time, for more conversations about mental health in the Black community. Therapy is, available for everyone in the UK. You can find, you can speak to your GP, you can go online and search for local therapists in your area. And there is a lot of art therapists as well, that if you wanted to, you can find that support available to you as well. So thank you. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Bye, Camille.